Hello, welcome to Tea with Malia. We are here today with Jan Fox, 4-time Emmy Award winner, and to me, a true celebrity. I'm excited to learn more about how you were able to move from where you grew up and come here all the way to Washington, D.C. and made this beautiful life. Lots of learnings, lots of challenges, and yet at the same time, knowing you in recent years, how much you celebrate life every day. So I'd love to start with asking you, how did you get involved in TV? Was that something that you planned, or did you stumble upon it?
Well, first of all, when a person has hair this color, you don't ask them to tell you their life story. Okay, it's a very long story. And then the second thing is, when I grew up, it was an old rattletrap house, and we didn't have the money for a TV. So on Monday nights, I would go to my neighbor's house, Pearl Walton's house, and I would watch I Love Lucy. So that was my role model. We had no clue about growing up to be on television. I don't even know if they had invented journalism schools back then. So I had my choice. I was in Indiana, and I had my choice of being a farmer's wife. That was hard work. A nurse. I fainted when a little boy had a bloody nose at church camp. That was out. So my other choice was to be a teacher.
Okay.
So I went to college, paid my way through to be a school teacher, and then got picked up at a college to teach teachers. So I became an assistant professor at Lesley University in Cambridge, Mass. And while I was there, a guy I know who's a shrink got invited to be on a local talk show on the ABC station. And he said, "Foxy, I need somebody, a woman, to come argue with a man as if they were having a bad morning at breakfast. And then he said, the shrink, will come in and sort out how you should talk to each other." I said, "Well, I know how to argue." So I did that for a few Sundays, and the host of that show left. And after a little while, they put me on as a 13-week contract to host that show, never having done it a day in my life. And after 5 years, I was still there. Well, they were still on a national search, and the ratings had doubled, and that was the beginning.
Oh my
and
goodness.
I'm telling you, Malia, you, the spirit soaring kind of girl, can understand this. For me, it was seeing little doors that opened, and my dad, hearing my dad's voice always saying, "Opportunity knocks, in walks Janet Fox. Opportunity knocks, in walks Denny Fox." That's my brother. His big message to us was always just keep our eyes open for good opportunities. So when I saw something, I just prayed to God or anybody else who was listening that I could rise to whatever that occasion was and tried. And if I failed, and there were times when I did, I would just scoot back out because I'd only put my toe in.
Wow. So your philosophy really is to look for the opportunities and at least try.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm not even looking for them. Sometimes I see something in my peripheral vision, and then I look. You see what I mean? I'm always kind of on the lookout for something fun and exciting and adventurous and new and helpful to somebody. But I'm not always in my mind thinking I'm looking for the next great opportunity for me. But I do have this peripheral vision that makes them show up. And then I believe in the power of tweaks, little things that can maximize all of your potential in every way. So I just stick my toe in, and if it doesn't work, I can back out pretty easily without having lost time, energy, money. But if it works, I can scoot the rest of me in and see what happens.
Yeah, in my world, I like to call it pilot programs.
There you
don't
go.
Fully launch
That's
something
perfect.
and go in and, okay, this is a pilot program. I'm just testing it out. Because you still take that big leap of faith, but at the same time, it's not so huge that you can't take it back, you can't make tweaks. Because I think that's where people get paralyzed. They don't take a chance because they're thinking the big stuff has to happen now, like in order for this to work.
We get told that. Jump in, go for it, do it, go for it. No, don't think small, think big. Well, I'm here to tell you, I like thinking real small because if it's bite-sized, not supersized, then I can swallow it. If it's just a little step, if it's turning sideways instead of going forward, instead of jumping, then I can see a different way. So that's sort of what I preach. And you eventually get to the big thing.
Yeah, and I think it's right. It's like having a big vision, having a large dream, and yet taking the small everyday steps.
Well, think about it. You coach a zillion people, and you're so good, and everybody on the whole world that I know who knows her loves her.
Thank you.
Soaring spirit, I call you.
Aw.
So if you think about it, the reason we don't end up living our big dream is because we can't find a starting point or starting place. So I'm all about the tiny step starting place. And once that happens, it just opens up in front of us.
Share with me that first experience on the set. Like, were you nervous, petrified? Was it easy for you? Did it just like feel like you were in flow with your life? What was that like? You got this call and you said, sure, I can argue. But when you stepped on the set, what was that like?
You know, they hadn't invented flow back then. I didn't know from flow, all right? But here's what I did know. My daddy was a storefront, evangelical, holy roller, fire and brimstone. Don't want to offend anybody, but he was loud, okay?
Wow.
And he preached on street corners and in nursing homes and jails. And he would drag me as a little kid with my little red accordion. Try not to picture this. But I had to sing.
Can't help it.
I know. I would sing and play. And I had to memorize memory verses. There hath no temptation taken you. And I think I have half of that Bible memorized. But I would have to say my memory verse, say the name of my song, and say what it was about. At 5, 6 years old, I remember playing Faith of Our Fathers and trying to explain what that meant. And so I have no fear of talking. This makes me not the least bit nervous. First of all, you're wonderful, and this is a wonderful setting. But
Thank you.
I remember leading an elephant into Boston Square Garden. 16,000 people saying, welcome, blowing the whistle first, and then saying, welcome to the circus on behalf of ABC TV. I hope you all have a wonderful day at the circus. I had not a stitch of fear. I was just riding high. But if you give me an Excel spreadsheet or balance my checkbook, then I understand fear, so I get it, I get it. So I just sat down, and honestly, the guy started asking us questions, and then he gave us a little scenario, and I just started arguing with my buddy. And then, after it was over, he said, okay, this is the way it should have gone. Jan, try to understand. Say, I understand your situation, and see what happens. So Jan said, I understand your situation. And the guy said, oh, well, then. And all the anger dissipated. So I actually learned some things in that little stint, too. But I don't remember being nervous. Now, when they put that microphone in my hand, and I rode in with the co-host on a fire truck for the first day they were announcing me as the new host, I remember being a little like, oh, this dress doesn't look like me. Oh, how am I going to get out of this fire truck? It wasn't ever about the talking. Do you remember John Kenneth Galbraith? Yeah, nobody would anymore. Okay. He was John F. Kennedy's economic advisor. And back in the day, he wrote a book this thick, and I don't remember the name of it. Okay. But I had to read that book or pretend I did and then interview him. And so he sat down in the chair, and I'd read enough to feel like I knew enough to get through 7 questions. Wow. And he said, how much time do I have for this interview, dear? About 7 minutes. That's just enough time to make my whole life's work seem totally inconsequential, my dear.
Oh my gosh. So
that's how it started. So I did have butterflies then, but you know, if you give me Dolly Parton or Jimmy Carter, it's just like Jan chit-chatting with a buddy. Nervousness doesn't come to me that way. And when I speak on a big stage, it doesn't come.
What do you think are the greatest lessons that you've learned in your years of reporting and journalism and in your role in front of the television camera? What are some of the greatest lessons that you constantly tap back into?
Well, first of all, it wasn't a job. It was a mission. It had, for me, some kind of purpose. So if I'm standing on a street corner and there's the body and the crying mother and the cops coming screaming down the street, my mind automatically, through no purpose of my own, went to, how can I tell this story so somebody will get out of his chair, pick up the phone and give a tip, or pick up the phone and volunteer for a youth organization to keep the kids out of trouble. I mean, that's just the way my mind went.
I love that.
And so I heard Gordon Peterson, the great ABC, used to be Channel 9 anchorman, say one time in a speech, he said, this isn't a job, it's a calling. Now, I wasn't so bold to say I was called to do that job, but I did feel like it had purpose. So we had 15 or so news director GM changes in 19 years while I was at Channel 9. That means a lot of people come in who like you and a lot who don't. And I never felt like I worked for one of those men. I felt like I worked for my dad's work ethic inside me somehow. So I just wanted to deliver the best story I could. I wanted to never miss my page, because if you miss your page, the producer has stacked a show according to story pages. And if I missed my page, she had to immediately restack. And you know the chyrons, the names that sit on your chest, she then has to reprogram.
Wow.
So I never wanted to miss my page. And I guess I wanted to learn to deliver what was promised, and that was from my upbringing too. And so that was another lesson. And then another one was just to be grateful for every moment that came my way. One of my all-time favorite stories, but horrible story, there were a whole bunch of rock thrower kids, boys, who were throwing rocks off the overpasses on the Beltway one Memorial Day weekend. And a little girl who was 15 years old was sitting in the back of a pickup coming back from the beach with her friends, and a rock hit her in the head. They thought she was going to become a vegetable, and for some reason, I was the reporter that her mother would let in over time to talk about what was going on with her. And I was there the day she got to show me how she could take 3 steps. And then she showed me how she could read a little something. So I got to tell that story over time. We call it continuous coverage, or we call it a story with legs. And so there was something about watching that unfold and watching her inspire the audience, not me, but watching her inspire the audience with her courage, with her, she couldn't have verbalized it, but with her faith that she could do it. So every story there was a lesson. Jimmy Carter taught me to work till you sweat. He went to Benning Road, built 10 little houses in a week through Habitat for Humanity with a whole bunch of volunteers. I said, how do you get this done? He said, I just work till I sweat.
Wow.
So one after the other. Dolly Parton, she taught me you need a good foundation. I mean, there are all kinds of things.
That's fantastic.
I guess I also learned that this community, the DC community, isn't built at the bottom up by the politicians and the people at the top. It's built by the people who organize little groups, the Busy Bees in Southeast DC to help kids after school, Darryl Green, his after school program, people who just decided to band together to fight something or to fix something or to promote something. And sometimes they had to fight City Hall to get it done. But those are the real movers and shakers. So once again, I'm looking for the small guy.
That's fantastic. Thank you for saying that, doing that, and being that, because, you know, the model for Tea with Malia, the show, is really about highlighting those ordinary, extraordinary, exceptional people, their extraordinary stories and journeys, and also community advocates, you know, the people that don't always get those accolades or don't always get publications in the big magazines, but they're the ones who are shaping the entire community. And so I love how you describe your role and your work, because it truly is either being the liaison or the catalyst to create a connection or a community of people that can find a place, find a story that resonates with them, and either impacted by, hey, I want to be a part of that, or resonating with it so much that they will now change their lives and for the better. Yeah. I wanted to go back a little bit here. How did you get to the Washington, D.C. area?
It was a man. It was a man. When I went to work on that ABC station as the host, it lasted for almost 5 years, and then they sold that station to a big organization. And in order to sell it, they had to cut all of the local programming and just present the station very lean with the networking programming on it. And so I got cut. And I have to tell you, I went to see a producer of a news program that they were going to keep, and he said, close the door. You have all the qualifications, this is your job, but I have to take a woman of color.
Wow.
Now I have to tell you, I cried for a minute, and then I thought, it'll be easier for me to find the job. And so I had a friend who told me that the guy in Portland, Maine needed a reporter. So I call him, I get the interview, I fly up, and he said, after meeting me and talking to me and showing me around, he said, would you by any chance be interested in sitting on the set with the anchorman after the show and reading just reading the prompter of the female co-anchor's part? I said, sure, no problem. And I noticed that during the show live, that co-anchor had messed up some numbers in a story. So I just looked at the computer at the desk in front of me, and I'm not a numbers person. I can screw up my age if I'm not careful. You know, I would like to. But so I made sure I knew those numbers. So I sat by him and read that, and he said, great job, and that was it. And he said, I'll give you a copy of that video. I said, great. In those days we said tape. And so I didn't think anything of it and just could hardly wait to hear him call me and give me the reporting job. And he called 2 days later and said, I'd like you to be our anchor woman. Never been an anchor woman a day in my life. So I went, and I made lots of mistakes. I remember saying at one point, remember I'm from Indiana, there was a sidewalk situation in one of the neighborhoods where they had beautiful brick sidewalks, and the city was going to come through and put in concrete sidewalks. Notice how I said concrete? Well, on the air, I said, and the neighbors are upset because they're putting in cement sidewalks, not brick sidewalks. To which the sports reporter then came on and said, hey, Foxy, you can come swimming in my cement pond anytime you want. So I called the Pope the poop once. I mean, I made a zillion mistakes, but I also had a plan. I don't know where this plan came to me. I am not smart enough to think up this plan. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to ride in every parade they ask me. Yes, I say yes, I'll model in that fashion show. Yes, I'll come talk to your second grade class. I thought I would do everything I could in the community that they asked for because I didn't have to go to work until 3 in the afternoon. And if they fired me because I was bad, maybe the community would try to save me. Right. That's honestly what I thought. But you know, at the end of that 4-year stint, we had doubled the ratings, and we had a 51% share of the market, which means our news program had 51% of the news viewers at 6 o'clock at night out of all the TV stations in that market. We were written up in Broadcasting Magazine. Now, I'd like to take the credit for that.
Wow.
But we did get a new producer and we got a new set. So, but I think I had a little bit
I think you had a little bit to do with it,
so,
just a little bit.
While I'm in Portland, Maine, I meet a guy. And so after 3 years, and it's time for me to decide if I want to stay in Portland or go somewhere else, or try to go somewhere else. And at that time I was 40, so you know, it was 44. So that's way too old to be on TV. So
really?
Yeah, oh yeah. So they were firing people. They were firing younger people than that. So it would be really hard at 44 to go get another anchor job somewhere. So he said, Foxy, I don't know what you're going to do. Stay here, go, I don't know. But I'm putting all of your stuff on my moving van because I'm going to DC to take a job with a big company so that I can put my 3 boys through college. I said, well, okay then. So I brought a garbage bag of videos, tapes, big old tapes, and I had interviews at 4 and I had interviews at 7, and I got a pregnancy leave promise from a station in Baltimore, and I got in to see the news director at Channel 9. It was a pigsty. It was an old building. Rumor has it that Mike Buchanan, a funky old reporter, mooned me while I was there, but I didn't see that. But I loved what they did on the air. I just thought they did such a great job on the air. So I started with the news director interview, and then they started bringing people in. The assignment editor, the assistant news director, and then they bring in a guy with shiny shoes, a coiffed hairdo, and monogram sleeve. And I said, this is the boss. This is the general manager. This is a very big boss here. And so after the end of that interview, he said, I think we'd really like to bring you in to work with us as a reporter. I was so thrilled. I was so thrilled. But I went home and guess what happened? Nothing.
Oh.
A week goes by and you know we don't have email.
Right.
We don't have voicemail. So I'm calling Vivian Birch, God rest her soul, every other day. And I'll see if he's busy now. So I couldn't get through. 2 weeks go by and the guy's packing the van. You know what I'm saying? And I don't have a job. And so I'm walking down the street and I see this sign and it says, we'll ship anywhere in 24 hours. And so I walk in that place, don't know where this plan came from. I buy 2 live lobsters. They stick them in a box. I write a little note on a scrap piece of paper that said, I would hate to leave these bad boys behind, but for you, I would. I want your job. So I'm sure that at 3 o'clock the next day, by the delivery date, I'm going to get a call. I didn't. But I got one the next day, and he said the contract is in the mail.
Wow.
So that's how I ended up at Channel 9. Now, if you ask me how I lasted for almost 20 years when a lot of other people didn't, I have no idea.
That is incredible.
See what I mean? Opportunity.
Yes. And always thinking outside the box, being creative, not just going the traditional route.
Well, in that case, I was
Who sends
thinking
two
inside the
lobsters?
box. I was thinking inside the box. But here's what I say, and I honestly mean this. Somebody bigger than I planned this life for this little ratty-haired, socks don't match, dirty kid from that corner. And all I did was just try to walk it. Honestly, I just tried to walk. There, something happened, something showed up, I just walked it. And as you can tell, in the case of the talk show host or the news anchor, I walked it not having a clue if I could really do what I said I could do. I had the hope that I could, but I didn't really know.
And movement. You moved.
I was moving. I was taking baby steps. I was
Exactly.
moving.
My goodness.
It doesn't take much to do this. Think about it. It doesn't take much to do that, whether you believe it or not. So I was always saying, well, sure.
All those years of sharing stories, being a part of stories, being a part of families, everything, 20 plus, 30 plus years, how does that work in your world when you think of all of those people that touched you and that you've touched? How does that come into play now in your post-television years? And let me back up. When you won the Emmys, and maybe even if you want to describe the first time you received your Emmy, what was that moment like, and who did you share that with?
Well, I first of all called my mom and dad and told them that I was nominated. And my mom said she wanted to come. So I bought her a ticket, and I begged my dad to come. Well, they were living in the same house, but they were oil and water, and she was meaner than a snake, so I had words for him all the time. And so he said, no, 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 no. So I get there that night, and there is my dad standing in a baby blue tuxedo top, tuxedo pants with the ruffles and a baby blue bow tie, walking into the Washington, D.C. Emmy night with all the penguins in their black suits. So my first response was, oh my dad, I'm so happy to, oh, you look really nice. And I just said, well, now they know where I come from. So there was kind of a funny, well, I don't want to say it's funny. If somebody says, here's a funny story, you know it's never funny. So I'll just tell you the story. That year, I was nominated twice. Once, both in the featured story category. So it was the Iraq War, the first one. So I had saved old footage of interviews with kids everywhere I went to do an Iraq War story. If I saw kids whose lives were impacted by it, I just saved that back. And I had saved a whole bunch of it and kind of logged it. And finally, it was the end of the Iraq War, and I got to go over to a little school. And these were kids whose parents were in the war or granddad or something. So I got to go over to the Naylor Street School and interview two little kids. And he said, my daddy's coming home, my daddy's coming home. So I didn't say a word. I strung all of those pieces of video chronologically together into a 2-minute piece. My daddy going to Iraq, he'd going to be doing business. That was the opening bite from a 3-year-old little girl. My daddy doing business over there. And so then the next one or so, and then there was the one I remember vividly of, I showed the pictures of the dead birds with oil on them, and a little boy was saying, I just think it's so wrong that all these birds are dying and people are dying. It's so wrong. He must have been 5th grade maybe. And then it ended with, my daddy's coming home, my daddy's coming home. So that was one that won a nomination, and I was very proud of that piece of work. Wouldn't you be proud of that?
Yes, absolutely.
That was a nice piece of work. Well, on another day, the news director, the assignment editor at the time, Pat Casey, said, I got a story for you. And I was kind of new. He said, I want you to go over to this 3rd grade class in Silver Spring. They did a science fair, and a little boy won the grand prize by doing a study about kiss and ride. If people see those sign that says kiss and ride, do they really? Now, I tried not to say, you've got to be kidding. I tried to say, I'm really grateful for this job at Channel 9. I'm at Channel 9, right? I'm so grateful. So I go to the school, and I asked him a couple of questions, and I said, well, what did you discover? He said, it was subliminal. The sign was, Seth Goldstein was his name. I hope he's not watching. Seth Goldstein, I remember the name. He said, it's subliminal. They see the sign, and if they're new and just married a little bit, they kiss for a long time. Oh, but my. If they're old and they've probably been married a long time, they just say, I love you, and hop out of the car.
Oh my gosh.
So I did this story. I showed a science project, but luckily for me, a guy named Jamie, who is now a reporter on CNN, had written a funky little sign when they first put up the kiss and ride signs about the kiss and ride, and it was, down at the kiss and ride, do you kiss your bride, down at the kiss and ride. I mean, it was a funny little song, and I knew that existed somewhere from the talk show he did. So I got that song, and I showed people, showed the sign, you know, a little montage of people kissing, not kissing, and then I showed Seth and having him explain his study, and then I had him say what he discovered, the subliminal messaging. Aww. And I put that together as a little story, thinking it was the most ridiculous thing. Oh God, let me not have another one this crazy. But you know, we got a bunch of calls about how cute that thing was.
Very cute.
So that was nominated in the same category as the Iraq War one. So it comes time for the announcement about the Iraq War. And I'm like really, I'm wanting that so badly from my mom and from my dad and his blue ruffles. And I was going to, you know, I would thank them. And so I waited, and they didn't say my name. And I remember being so disappointed because, you know, when you come new and you haven't been a reporter on the street before, you know, you take a lot of heat from crusty old photographers that you don't do this right, and editors, well, you can't do that. You know, I've taken a little heat. We didn't know bullying back in those days. And so I was disappointed. I thought that would have been my moment to make a mark or to do something noteworthy. So up comes the next one is Theth, you know, the Kiss and Ride story by Jan Fox. And I'm just blowing it off because if this one doesn't win, this one has no chance. And they fucking called my name. Wow. So they show a clip of Seth Goldstein, and I go get my Emmy, and I thank everybody and his brother, including my daddy, Ruffles. And it was a very proud moment. But I always think that one that says on it, Kiss and Ride, that's what it says. I always think that one doesn't quite count.
Oh my gosh.
There you go. That's how I won the first one. I think it does count.
I do, because I think in life sometimes, most times we focus on all of the things that are painful and challenging. And the thing that truly saves a lot of people, including myself, is humor.
Humor, the fun of it.
Humor.
Seth called me. I gave him my little card, and he called me on many occasions to tell me, that story, I don't know if you got the ending right. Or that story, I think there was a grammatical error in that. I said, okay, Seth, very good, yeah. Once I found myself arguing with Seth. He was 12 at that point. I think he went from 8 to 12. Oh, you know, Seth, you might be right. Thank you for calling. I really appreciate that. So he became a buddy.
Aww. And that was a proud moment, though. You know, your parents were there.
They were there. They were there.
So so the work that you do now, let's go into that. Let's fast forward now. The work that you do now is really about helping people present themselves and their stories, bring charm, bring life, not only for themselves, but to touch the audience, to make a difference in other people's lives. Can you share why you decided and how you came to this realization that this was an absolute market for you and that you were going to be tasked with this new mission?
You made a few assumptions. Like A, I planned it, and B, I thought there was a market for it. You give me way too much credit. So I actually got to retire from Channel 9. I went to the news director. I know, they fired 9 people over the age of 50 in a year-and-a-half period before, and I was left standing for another 6 years. I don't know why. So I went to them and said, you know, I'd really like to retire. The R word. My husband got a big new HD TV, and I'm telling the news director this, my favorite news director of all. And I said, I look like my great Aunt Marion on it. I said, I didn't know I had a Fu Manchu. My photographer pointed out the chicken neck. I mean, I'm 62 years old. Why am I still on the street? And wait till you hear this. I am at the Alexandria Courthouse. I'm parked. The Channel 7 news truck comes up. This beautiful, drop-dead gorgeous blonde hair, pencil skirt, legs up to her ears, gorgeous, sweet, doesn't quite know where we're doing things today. And so in the morning show, you help people. And the photographer says, you know who that is, don't you? I said, no. That's Pamela Brown. She's Phyllis George's daughter. Well, now, Phyllis George is my age, and she was the first CBS female sportscaster, and now I'm working with her daughter. So I said, you know, Mike, the news director, said, you know, I've now discovered, I used to say I'm 20 years older than everybody on the street. I'm 40 years older than everybody on the street. So I'd really like to retire. And I would like to say goodbye on all of my shows. I don't want to pack my boxes in the middle of the night and slip out the back door like some others have had to do. I want to say goodbye and thank people for watching me all these years. And I want a cake that does not come from the grocery store. I want a chocolate fancy cake from a bakery. And he burst out laughing, which that softened. And then he said, you know, we could put you on the webcam. We could make you not have to go out. You could do our web stories. I said,
They weren't ready to let you go.
Well, let me get this straight. You want me to stand in front of the webcam close up? I don't think so. I found something I want to do. I'd gotten a call from Billy Casper Golf. They own 150 golf courses across the country, and they asked me to come do a little customer service job, play free golf for the rest of my life, take a third of my salary, but the economy was good. I said, sure. So I said, I'd really like to go do that job. And I'll help you out on any story, anything that I've ever covered where you need a follow-up, and I've helped them on several stories over the years. I'll help you. So I got the bakery cake, and I got to say goodbye on all my shows. So all those years I was on television, when an event needs a facilitator or an MC or a keynote luncheon speaker, they call people on the box. They don't necessarily call me, but they call somebody who sits in that box. So I have spoken to every government agency in town. I've emceed every charity event known to man. I've emceed every golf course known to man, golf tournaments. And so I thought that my speaking and all the coaching that I've done of people over the years to speak better or to do something on television, there was a lot of that, not very often for money, I thought that would be over because I wasn't on a box. Well, it kept coming. And then people wanted to know if they could pay me. So I would coach people and tell them how to get on television or how to give a speech, or I coached a kid who's won a Peabody award, the biggest TV award possible in Baltimore. Yeah. He's got 12 Emmys.
That's
I coached
amazing.
him. He barely remembers. No, he remembers my name. So anyway, I just thought, this is happening. Why is this happening? And I said, okay, I had a purpose to be a kindergarten teacher. My life purpose was to be a college professor. My life purpose was to be on TV. Do I have another life purpose? I was thinking about retirement. And I said to my husband, I've got these little checks. I think it costs $150 to set up an LLC. Maybe I should just do a little business. And he said, okay. And I didn't know how. And I didn't know how after you get the paper. So I collected a whole bunch of stuff and showed a PowerPoint that I'd just spoken from at a conference. And I took that to a very high-priced brander and spent the day and said, can I do this? Is there a business here for me? What do I do? And she said, you have a business and you have an amazing story. And that PowerPoint, I've seen PowerPoints all over the world, and that's in the top 5%. Everything on it is original. You're good. So I could not, first of all, it's even hard for me to repeat those words to somebody, but I felt nervous. I felt really nervous about other ventures, not so nervous, TV, circus. But I didn't know anything about building a business, and I didn't know if I could structure things that talks that people would pay money for, or coaching sessions that people would pay money for. And so I went home and I said to my husband, It was the most wonderful day. She said all these wonderful things to me. If she has faith in me, I know I can do this. But we didn't come up with a good name. She gave me some, but those URLs were taken and they didn't fit. And my husband said, why don't you just call it Fox Talks, because you sure as heck do, as you can tell. So he says, you talk and you teach people to talk. So that's the scientific study I did to start my business.
That's amazing.
And I have to tell you, Malia, it's true about this business as it was about a guy asking me to anchor when I'd never anchored a day in my life. It was true about getting a job in Channel 9 when the news director had a whole wall behind his desk of videotape stacked up in rows, and I got that job. So I don't know how it happened, or how it continues to happen, but it's referral after referral. I wouldn't even know how to advertise. My kid helps me with my social media, but I just keep busy with coaching clients. I thought I would do more speaking, but the coaching clients keep coming, and then when I speak, I get another speaking gig, and people say, who is your target audience as a speaker? So I've spoken to International Car Week in New Orleans, and my audience was collision and repair shop owners, as if I know what's under the hood. I have been to San Diego to speak to the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America. And then my favorite, I was invited to Boston by the National Association of Pet Cemetery and Crematory Owners.
Oh.
I didn't even know from that. And I said to the lady on the phone, do you know I only have goldfish? Honey, we bury them too. I said, well, okay, I'm coming to Boston. So I don't know exactly how to figure out the target audience, but what I talk about more often than not is speak for full-blown impact. Don't speak with full-blown impact. Speak for it, so the people who are listening to you get your message. And what I've finally figured out, a little baby mission statement.
Okay, let's hear it.
I help people like you and businesses speak their mission as fully as they believe it, so believers will follow them.
That's fantastic.
So I now realize that, I'm getting goosebumps, I now realize that my job is not just to speak, or the gift that I get is of standing on a big stage, oh, whoa, and having people say, attaboy. I mean, that's like hitting a good drive off the tee box, and my husband says, attaboy, you know. You get praise for that stuff. So I thought that was the end-all and be-all. You help people and get an attaboy. But it suddenly dawned on me, by the coaching, I'm helping more messages that need to be heard get in the world. And now I love the coaching. It's the least leverageable thing. I mean, you'll put these beautiful videos on YouTube and another channel, and people will pay to watch them or hire you because of them. Well, coaching, you go sit with one person in a room and they're scared to death and they stand up. I see their skin stretch before my very eyes. But then I think about their message getting in the world, and I drive to the next stop sign. I'm higher than a kite and I don't drink. So do a little chocolate, but don't. So I just get high on that experience. So I love it. And it comes to me, it just keeps coming to me.
You know, I appreciate so much what you're sharing, because it makes people like me, creative businesses like me, feel less alone in the world, because everything you share is what I live. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't know what you're doing half the time because you're led by passion. And sometimes when you're led by passion, it's like, oh, I have to go there because my heart tells me to go there.
Doesn't mean you can balance your checkbook, okay? You're just saying.
It's just amazing, though, because there are a couple of things that you said that truly, and I hope as people are watching that they're paying attention. You know, when you do work, and the reason why coaching now makes you feel the way you do, high as a kite, like you said, is because you know that it's beyond you, beyond it being for you. You're taking one person at a time. Even in the setting of an auditorium, you have individual people who came to hear something specific that they might not have even known they were going to hear that day. That can change not only the way they tell their story or the way they own their story or see their story, the tweaks that we talk about, but now they're going to start the process of obtaining the courage to spread the message, to spread the mission, to spread hope and healing. So on a grander scale, the work that you do and the channel in which you do it is not just about I help people speak better, profoundly. It's really about helping you, be the catalyst for you, to be the catalyst for you, to be the catalyst for change.
Amazing. It's amazing. I get the emails, you know. I worked with a woman, I met her in a Vistage group, which is a group of CEOs, and I love speaking to Vistage groups. And she was very shy and couldn't say much of anything in the group without saying a lot of ums and putting her head down. And she asked me to coach her. That woman does Tough Mudder races through the mud. She is a bodybuilder. She jumps out of airplanes. And it took 2 sessions, 2 little sessions, for her to put energy behind her speaking about what she does. 2 little sessions. She had a story, 5 parts, five tips to jump out of an airplane or whatever else you have in front of you. It's amazing. And I got the email. She was looking for a job. She has the guy. She's following the guy to a new city. And she had not 1, but 3 job offers. And that child could not have answered an interview question without before.
Wow.
So something happens. I have a system that I use. I call it Speak Tweaks. What else? And I run them through some PowerPoint and some exercises. And then if they want to carve out a talk, I help them. Some people have horrible stories to tell with wonderful endings. My good friend Richard Badami, whom you know, says we learned how to speak the unspeakable. And I love those words. So anyway, I have this system that I use, and then if they want me to help them, I call it story weaving. I get their stories out in a very unemotional way. We're just facts, ma'am. And then all of a sudden we see the emotional impact of it when it's finished, and then we weave those together into specific messages. So I can't tell you where in that process it happens. But every single solitary time, bar none, people walk out with a talk, and they walk out with the courage to give it. And I've never once said the word confidence. But I have to tell you, I feel like an imposter. Because a lot of other coaches, really work from the inside out. You work on what our purpose is and where our blocks are. I've watched you. I mean, I see the people in your workshops rave about how you do that to them. They had no idea what their life mission was. They come out from a little time with you and they got a life mission. I see it. All right?
Thank you.
I feel like I don't have the time to start there. And I want to believe that they come to me with an authentic story. They come to me wanting to be authentic. So I just show them a few things to do from the outside in. So do this, Molly. Put your elbows on your rib cage. A lot of people come to me speaking like this, you know,
right.
Tyrannosaurus Rex. But watch what happens if you just spread your arms out a little bit. If you just pull them away from your rib, all of it, they say, oh, I feel more energy. Oh, I feel more powerful. I never said you have to speak more powerfully.
That's very true.
You just do something. Or a woman came flapping her hands down at her side like this. And I didn't have the heart to tell her she looked like a penguin. She was gorgeous and elegant. She lives in this town. And so I showed her a little video. I said, I'm going to tape this. And she said, oh my God, I look like a penguin. I go, yes. So now she looks like the powerful woman that she is.
That's amazing.
And she has more confidence than when she came in, and I didn't have to say it. So the reason I think I'm an imposter, and there are other speaker coaches who think that my teaching people not to say is not a big deal, that if people tell their authentic story, that people don't mind if they say I mind. So I want them to not do that. And I want their hands to follow their words, not go like, not be all offbeat or standing here warming their belly buttons or something. So when I fix those things from the outside in, the inside gets fixed. I can't explain it, and I don't know where in the process it's going to happen.
I think it's beautiful. I think that we're all gifted in our own unique ways from the experiences all the years that you had your own training, whether they were purposeful training or whether it was experimental. I mean, it's just the way that it is. When what you have to give is something I could never give because it wasn't made for me to give. It wasn't created, my path, my life path doesn't allow me to have the capacity in terms of the gifts and talents that you have. You know, and vice versa.
I think you could do what I do in a snap.
Now you're giving me too much credit.
No,
Well, I appreciate you saying that.
But you do the hard work. You do the hard work. Other speaker coaches do the hard work. They get the stories out sometimes. And then somebody will come to me, they've got the story already, they just are scared or they don't know what to do about it. So you've done the hard work.
Well, you're a part of fun. No, you're a part of the community though, because, you know, and my whole process is around helping people soar, as you know. Oh, yes. I mean, first you have to see all the things that are there for you inside and out. Then you have to own the facts and the emotions involved. Then you actually have to articulate that, because it's one thing to see it, own it, and then keep it inside. How do you make change? How do you create change? If you're not able to ask for help, that's articulating it. You know, speak what it is that's on your mind. That's true communication. But really then it's about, if you have the confidence now to see it, to own it, to know what your life's mission, your messages are, now you're able to articulate that through practicing. How am I going to spread the word? How am I going to actually do the big change? Not just for myself, for the entire community. What have I learned?
So what's the R?
So the release.
The release. Okay.
This is what I mean. This is where the community, our community, is being able to say, go see Jan, because she can help you now release it. The whole idea of being able to move and flow. And then, you know, you can articulate it through writing, you can articulate it even through speech, but if it's in front of the mirror for you, it's not serving a greater purpose. And I think that once people have the confidence, when they see their own purpose and their value, they are ready to release. They don't know how.
They are.
That's why they call you. They don't know how.
They don't know how.
So it is powerful what you do. It is truly powerful what you do. And it's part of the whole puzzle of helping people, for me, in my world, soar. Would you give us some tips for those that have never spoken, or maybe even have spoken, but they know that they could do better? What are some of the key things over time and through the coaching that you do? Maybe 2 or 3 tips that you could share with our audience.
The first one, let's talk about ums. Researchers say that if you are an ummer through your talk, even though you know your business, the audience is distracted, the audience might not think you're as intelligent as you are, and the audience thinks you might not have prepared enough for them, which is a personal affront. We don't want anybody thinking that about us. You haven't once, by the way. So the way to is just shut your mouth. Just shut your mouth. Because if your mouth is shut, an can't come out.
And can't come out.
Can't come out.
That's what we try to translate it.
Sure, come on. So if you are speaking and you lose your train of thought, the ums or ers come. Or if you're speaking and you lose your train of thought, you go like, which is another So I just say you have 2 triggers to get that stopped before it comes out of your body. The one is the second that you know you've forgotten what you're going to say, or that your mind is searching for another word, that's a trigger to quickly shut your mouth. Shut it. And while you're thinking, shut it. And then when you start to speak again, just start from where you left off. Right. And that second trigger is put your hand right here. Now say, Feel it start right here. So if you didn't catch it before you thought it, when you feel that thing going, stop it, shut your mouth. And it takes 3 days.
I was going to say, it must feel a little jolting at first. It's like, I hear...
Well, I coached a very influential CEO, a very influential man in his whole industry, internationally. He was an ummer, and he wanted to stop. He wanted to be a good speaker. So I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go home to your wife tonight, and I want you to say, Linda, you know I'm working with Jan, and she says I have to shut my mouth while I'm thinking. I'm not going to say ums anymore, but it might sound funny for a while. So I heard him another day and a half later, come out of his office and walk over to his assistant, and I'm walking down the hall this way, and I hear him say, "Deborah, you know, I'm working with Jan, and I'm not supposed to say so I have to shut my mouth while I'm thinking, but it's getting better." Deborah bursts out laughing. So I said, "Okay, Deborah, what did you see?" "He sounds like an idiot." I see a man who's practicing. And today, that man has been invited to a speakers bureau, by a speakers bureau, to become part of their people in the stable. He speaks the world over on his industry, and he's absolutely amazing. So that one little tip brought him from being an okay speaker because he had some good stories to being phenomenal and having the ability to having a phenomenal impact on other people. And then one other just quick one is, if you don't know what to do with your hands, I call them the dreaded hangers. You know, where do these things hang? What do they do? Well, the first thing is, don't put them there, because that is like the fig leaf, and all of your eyes went there, and that's not where you want your eyes going. I know what you're thinking. And then you don't, as I said before, you don't want to look like the opera singer or the belly button warmer. You don't want to put them behind your back. And then men, if you put your hands in your pockets and stand like, it just looks gross, so don't do that. So I just say they follow your words.
Okay. So move.
They just follow. If they go like this, it's all scattered, and I think I look scatterbrained speaking like this. But if I look like this, I'm speaking naturally and even more powerfully. So I say, shake my hand, now let it go, and let it stay just like this, and you're ready to say anything. Now say everybody.
Everybody.
Over in Pittsburgh.
Over in Pittsburgh.
Well, I don't know if that's the direction of Pittsburgh, but it's over to Pittsburgh. Or a woman came to me in just layers of clothing, and I was able to give her a suit from Suited for Change. What do you do when you finish your sentence? You just let them drop, and you start again. And then I was able to go to the rack and pull out a beautiful blue suit for her. Did I give you a visual picture, even if I don't have a PowerPoint? Yeah. If I told people, if I'm standing up the other day, you should watch Molly's television. I went to her beautiful home, and she had these two gorgeous red chairs, and she gave me chocolate tea, which I love. And her spirit just soars. Now, don't I paint a picture of you? Well, I went to see Molly the other day, and I was on her TV show, and she was really elegant, and her spirit just soars, and she gave me chocolate tea. Well, it would have been okay before, but isn't it better? I say we have an auditory rhythm, we have a visual rhythm. And where do we spend all of our time preparing our talk? It's on the words, it's on the auditory rhythm. I want it to be on what we show them, and they remember what we show them. Is that enough?
That is
As you can tell, I can go on and
enough.
on and on
No,
and on.
I love it, and I'm sure this is just a taste, and I wanted our audience to have a taste of you, because even I was so delighted when Jan said yes to me recently when I asked her to come and do a SOAR workshop. And you know, SOAR is all about, again, see, own, articulate, release your message and your mission. I thought, wow, is she gonna do this? It's my first pilot. It's my pilot program for a workshop. Is she gonna say yes? Would she do me the honor, knowing that you're this amazing, to me, again, celebrity? I've watched you when I was a little girl.
How many people watch your things that you put on YouTube, or how many followers do you have?
Well, I can definitely share that the first webisode that we put out was 94,000 views.
Okay, I had 4. So now who's amazing, all right? So I'm stretching with the 4, but no, you are amazing. You affect 94,000 people in a few minutes of talking, and they go out and soar. So anyway, but thank you, but you are amazing.
Thank you. Now I thought I lost my train of thought.
Oh, that I came to your workshop. I came to your workshop.
What I wanted to say about that is, in that time frame that you were there, you gave these phenomenal tips that weren't over our heads. They weren't anything major. Literally, you truly speak and do what you say you're going to do. It's these tiny tweaks. It's the tweaks, and then the retweaks, and then the retweak again, and it's practice. And so for those that are interested in becoming a speaker or getting better at sharing your story in a way that truly is profoundly going to impact and change the world. You know, learn from someone who has tweaked and tweaked again her entire life to be here in this place. So that's really just all I wanted to say. Was my turn to be able to say, I believe that your work is much bigger than you realize, and that's probably why you don't understand the level of people coming to you, and more and more and more. And when people feel the energy and know that it's beyond you making money for your business, they will spread the word. That's why the referral piece, the word of mouth, is so critical.
I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful for all of it. You know, I never got up in the morning and hated going to my job at Channel 9. And sometimes I had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. But I stand in awe. I stand in awe and honest gratitude that I got to do that job. And that's the way I feel about this. A bunch of people like something I put on Facebook. I'm not saying, ooh, I'm, whoa, I'm great, whoa. Or if I get a great testimonial, I'm in awe of that stuff is happening to me. So I'm very grateful. So thank you for letting me come play.
Absolutely. Can you let us know how we can find you? Are you on social media?
I am. I'm all over the place. It's Fox Talks. As my husband says, she certainly does. So it's jan@foxtalks.com is my email. Go ahead, shoot it to me. My website is www.foxtalks.com. Facebook is Jan Fox Talks. Twitter is Jan Fox Talks.
Just Google her.
Google me.
Yeah, she'll show up. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you for being on Tea with Malia, being a part of our community, being a part of my belief that everyone can soar. So it's an honor to have you here, and I hope that you'll come back on the show again at some point.
All I need is an invite. Thank you.
Thank you again. Thanks everyone for joining us again here on Tea with Malia, and we'll see you again next time.